All right, welcome. We're diving right into a masterclass refresher on the core principles of removable partial dentures. This is really designed for you, the busy clinician, to get a solid, practical review.
So let's just jump in. When you look at a partially edentulous arch, you're not just seeing a couple of missing teeth, are you? You're actually facing an incredible number of possibilities. We're talking over 65,000 potential combinations of teeth and edentulous spaces. It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it.
So the big question is, how on earth do we make sense of that chaos?
First, you've got to learn the parts, the basic anatomy. And then you learn the language that ties it all together. That is exactly what we're going to do today.
So let's start with that anatomy. Look, every single removable partial denture, I don't care how simple or how complex it looks, is built from 5 core components, and each one has a very, very specific job. First up, the major connector. You can think of this as the chassis of the RPD. It is the absolute foundation. Its whole purpose is to be rigid, to unify the prosthesis, and connect everything from the left side to the right so it all functions as one solid unit.
Now, this is where things get really interesting, because the design rules are totally different for the two arches. Down in the mandible, it is all about space. You absolutely need at least 8 millimeters of vertical height for a lingual bar. No exceptions. But up in the maxilla, the focus shifts to respecting the tissue. You need to stay at least 6 millimeters away from the gingiva and really follow the natural anatomy of the rugae.
And I love this clinical rule of thumb. It just says it all, doesn't it? If you don't have 8, then you must plate. It's this simple, powerful gut check. If you measure and that 8 millimeters of vertical space just isn't there, a lingual bar is off the table. You're going with a lingual plate. End of story.
Okay, next up, the minor connectors. So if the major connector is the chassis, these guys are like the struts and the support beams. They are the critical link joining all the other parts, the clasps, the rests, back to that main framework. And they have a huge job in transferring functional stress to the abutment teeth.
Then we have the direct retainer. We all just call it the clasp assembly, right? This is what literally keeps the RPD from falling out. And it's really a team of 4 parts working in harmony. You've got the rest for support, the retentive arm that snaps into the undercut, a reciprocal arm to brace the tooth, and of course the minor connector. Its whole job is to fight against being dislodged.
Now for those tricky distal extension cases, we're talking class 1 and class 2, the indirect retainer becomes absolutely essential. It's usually just a simple rest, but it's placed in a really strategic spot to act like a fulcrum. It stops those sticky foods from lifting the back of the denture right off the tissue. It's a game changer for stability.
And last but not least, the denture base. This is the part that actually sits on the ridge, holds the artificial teeth, and, this is key, it helps spread out all those chewing forces between the abutment teeth and the soft tissue.
Okay, so we've got the anatomy down. Now, let's learn the language. Remember that insane 65,000 combinations problem we started with? Well, the Kennedy classification system is the beautifully simple, elegant solution that brings perfect order to all that potential chaos.
And here they are, the 4 foundational classes that Dr. Edward Kennedy gave us way back in 1925. I mean, it's brilliant. He took this overwhelming complexity and boiled it down to just 4 categories. Class 1, missing teeth in the back on both sides. Class 2, missing teeth in the back on one side. Class 3, a missing tooth space with teeth on either side. And Class 4, a single space up front that crosses the midline. That's it. It's an incredibly powerful system.
To really get fluent in this language, you need to know the rules of grammar. And that's where Dr. Applegate comes in. His rules bring some serious clarity, especially when you're dealing with those more complex cases that have multiple empty spaces.
Now, Applegate actually gave us 8 rules. But honestly, these are the 4 you really have to burn into your brain. Get these down and you'll classify correctly every single time. 1. Always classify after any planned extractions. 2. The most posterior space always determines the classification. 3. Any other empty spaces are just called modification spaces. And 4. A class 4 by its very definition can't have any modification spaces.
So if you remember nothing else, remember this one rule. Rule number 5. This is the key. Look at the arch, find the edentulous space that is furthest back that you're going to restore, and boom, that is your classification. Everything else is just a modification of that primary class. It's that simple.
Okay, let's bring this all home. How does this classic foundational knowledge actually fit into your modern-day practice with all the tech we have now?
Well, the reality is, even with all the cool digital workflows, 3D printing, CAD/CAM, the basic biomechanical principles have not changed one bit. The physics of support, stability, and retention are timeless. Technology changes how we make an RPD, but these principles tell us why it's going to work or why it's going to fail.
So, let's quickly wrap up with the key takeaways. First, get in the habit of mentally deconstructing every case into those 5 core components. Second, use the Kennedy system. It's our universal language. Third, apply Applegate's rules, especially number 5, for total clarity. This anatomy and language approach, that is your blueprint for success. So I'll just leave you with this final thought to take back to your practice on Monday. With these fundamentals fresh in your mind, how are you going to consciously apply them to elevate the design, the function, and ultimately the success of the very next partial denture you prescribe?